It's interesting to do a discussion looking at a niche sector because often it's difficult to get information on that, to get insights into the sort of longer stay apart hotel sector, which is a growing niche within the European scene. And it's also interesting just to get that sense of what's happened in the US, where it's been a sector that's been there for some time. And it's interesting just to see how it's developed in the US and how it's developing in Europe. Hospitality and hotels has become a much more significant part of the discussion, both across Europe but also globally, fitting into the real estate picture.
Extended stay hotels, apartment hotels, they take hospitality to another level. It is a recognition of the way some people travel. Typical traditional hotel just doesn't fit the bill anymore. And so serviced apartments, apartment hotels all focus on that type of travel occasion, that type of travel need where you're there longer than a few nights.
You really see two different types of demands. This extended stay demand, people, as John explained, staying for more than a few days, a week or even longer, a couple of months. And on the other hand, you have the people that are in town for 1 or 2 days.
When it started in the U.S., it was small. There wasn't enough stock. Hoteliers didn't understand it. Investors didn't understand it. Customers didn't understand it. And over time, just like is happening here, it began to grow. People got to see, and it was generally accepted. Today in the U.S. has been for a decade the fastest growing part of the whole U.S. Hotel market. And I predict the same thing is happening here.
What do you think is attracting investors?
It's a very mature market in the U.S. It's a growing market in Asia. We feel that in Europe it's a matter of time before the extended stay subsector is going to become more mainstream.
So the sector's growing. The guest is really driving the product.
What makes it attractive for investors as well, this type of properties, is that it has a very stable revenue income.
The serviced apartment sector, or even extended stay apartments, have the ability to produce a relatively stable income. Well, part of it seems to be driven by the economy. Investors are looking for good opportunities.
That is now where we're clearly at a tipping point, right? Where there are operators that now have 10 plus amount of units under management, and are now kind of really proving the concept in terms of what we all theoretically saying.
The opportunity is definitely there and it's growing. A great example is, look at London serviced apartment performance last year. In terms of RevPAR growth, it was up 12%.
The universe of untapped potential is enormous, more than enough to last our collective lifetimes. There's plenty of opportunity all the way across Europe.
UNWTO forecast that cross-border arrivals into Europe is going to increase 53% by 2030.
How price sensitive is it?
Although in Europe that is not that obvious yet, there are only a very limited number of brands active. The majority of the product out there is still non-branded. So I think eventually the sector in Europe will mature and there will be more brands and there will be more segmentation. By building a dual-branded hotel or double-decker hotel as we call it, basically you build two hotels on the same plot.
How do you see the opportunities, I suppose, for investors looking at this market?
So in terms of the opportunity markets for operators for expansion, is cities like Paris, London, which are, the most mature, still offer good opportunity for growth. Dublin, again, standing out as a very interesting market. It's obviously much smaller. Copenhagen, Munich, Oslo, Stockholm, Sofia, Vienna, also looking very interesting.
What's your sense of the influence of Airbnb?
It introduces the concept of having a kitchen in a place where you stay. I think it broadens the market, much like budget airlines broaden the market compared to the legacy carriers.
I think there's more organisations seeing the value in Airbnb as an OTA and a route to market than there's ever been.
It's very clear that this new supply that is coming from Airbnb and innovations in the sector is not decreasing the price. If anything, it has a very small positive effect on prices of existing offering around locations where this new supply is coming into the market.
The biggest challenge is lack of product. The issue here is lack of stock, so you need developments. Not enough credible operators yet.
There's not quite a meeting of minds there. Whilst the brands are doing everything they can to sort of raise the profile, I still think there's significantly more work to be done from a consumer's perspective to understand what we're talking about here. For me, it's about making sure the guest gets what they're expecting.
So we're talking about issues in terms of labour availability in the UK post-Brexit. The wage costs are going to increase, and there's a lot of investors who would like to get into the market, but the difficulty, going back to your point, is availability of purpose-built stock. First of all, we need the operators to go into those markets, and with that we'll see the investment in those markets.
It has to show that it has the ability to provide diversification.
Do you see increased regulation coming into this area, particularly for the sort of private Airbnb?
Airbnb has relatively little impact on hotels in general. Those regulations are being driven mainly by the residential sector, mainly by the political economy of housing.
The biggest trends that you're expecting to see over the next couple of years in this particular sector?
I really believe that this subsector will become mature, right, and will really become a investment class hospitality asset, and even as a potential, I think, to in time be seen as a bit more of a hybrid between residential and hospitality.
Flexibility of space, blurring of uses. So we're seeing, operators, extended stay, hotels, introducing additional uses to generate, number one, additional revenues, but also to add a certain degree of vibrancy.
It's much more dual-branded development where you see traditional hotel built together with an extended stay hotel.
This sector will be tied to the fate of the economy, so depending on what happens with the business cycle next, it's going to be very interesting to see how this sector, so the extended stay sector, is affected.
I think you're going to see even more new concepts, new operators coming out.
So I think it's very much based on demand, and whether that be from a business requirement perspective or a leisure requirement perspective I was talking about earlier. I think this is going to merge more and more and more with the development of technological advances in terms of ability to work from anywhere.
The cycle is at the end of the beginning. We're moving into the new phase where there's enough units out there now that the economics have been proven, the viability of the segment is established. There are real hard numbers and performance that can be seen.
It's been a very interesting discussion. Thank you all for your insights, and I'm looking forward to seeing how this particular sector grows from now, and we'll see just in terms of your thoughts on the trends, how those come to fruition. So thank you very much for giving us your views. Thank you.